All right, welcome to another episode of Getting Started.Life, the show where we help you launch new endeavors by covering the 5 steps to get started and the big mistake people make. We have a fantastic guest today who I know personally, Chris Johnson, great networker. I'm going to let you talk about your background because I don't know if I could do it justice by talking through about all the things you're involved with and what really makes what makes you an expert in this subject. So the subject today is so you want to effectively start networking. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what your background is.
Yeah, I don't know where we begin, Doug, on that. So thanks for having me on the show, and admire everything about you and what you're about. But the background, let's start from the very beginning in Bloomington, Indiana. That's where it all began. And I'm proud to say that I have this Indiana University shirt going today, and it's Indiana's season opener in basketball
Nice.
today. So extremely excited about that. But I think that the network began early on. I think it always comes back to where you're from and foundation and how you're raised. So I always tell people that I love my mother and I love my father, and I will never, ever apologize for that. So, and I think that they gave me foundations from very early on about how you treat people, and how when you see somebody you don't know, that the first thing I do when I see somebody I don't know is I do this, I wave. And that we're going to get very simplistic about how to build a great network, but it's always about people. So
Before going into the steps, could you talk a little bit about the two organizations that you're a part of? I was lucky enough to sit in on a meeting with SIL last week, and I'll let you say what the acronym is, but fantastic groups. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, I've got, I started out, I've been doing this for a very, very long time, Doug and Marya. And the first thing I started was a group called Chat at 8. I've got about 15 years that I spent in the sports club, health club business, which we can talk about how that was formed, how these groups go, because you simply get to know people. When somebody comes in to work out, they say they want to lose weight. And you say, why do you want to lose weight? And then they say, well, my husband's cheating on me, or vice versa. They travel the world, or they travel over the country on business, and I think they're cheating. I need to lose 40 pounds. So you get to that where you can, and then maybe their daughter or son's getting married, and I want to lose 45 pounds so I can look great in the wedding pictures. Those are things that you hear. So with that, because you just kind of get to know people and what they're about, we started Chat at 8 and did that for a long time, had a lot of success with it, had probably 80, 90 people coming, Doug. And it ran its course. I learned a lot about what I need to do to get better. I thought it was a little bit transactional at times. So I kind of learned how to attract the kind of people that I felt like were doers. And it was a great learning foundation for me to go into the next thing called the Strategic Introduction League, which I think you just brought up. And we started that about 2.5 years ago, right before COVID. And I think we had about 160 people that were going to come to our luncheon. And then COVID hit. And I had a gentleman that sat me down and said, Chris, you've got to go online. And wasn't something I was really that comfortable with and didn't really want to do it at that point. And he kind of did a goodwill hunting on me and said, you got to go online. Did it about 15 times and finally got me to agree to do it. And we formed a really good, and I thought COVID was, people needed the camaraderie that and the emotional touch, I think, that we provided, and maybe got them through, people needed that human interaction throughout that period. And we grew that thing to probably about 900 people on our LinkedIn page. And we've taken some folks out because simply they haven't matched up with what we want. So we look for three things in that group. We look for humble. Got a lot of people that make a heck of a lot of money. It doesn't mean a lot to me about the money they make. I want them to be self-deprecating. I want them to be communicative about what they did to get to where they're at. And I want them to be really take a meeting with anybody. And that's what we demand from the folks that are in that group. The second thing is we want them to be hungry. If you've already gotten to where you need to be, I don't know why you need me to further yourself in business or in life or to help you with anything, or my partner, Michael Pasahovich, who is a great part of that. And then altruistic is the third piece of that group. And we look for folks that no matter where you're at in life, that you're out to serve and help others. And then, what do you do if you're not making, I mean, it doesn't have to be tied to making money. It can be just to doing the right thing and helping somebody in a time of need. So that's what we created. The last piece, which you were on a boat for Center of Influence, Doug, that was the boat ride that we were able to host about 2.5 weeks ago down on the Wendell. And we did a private boat ride and got 10 sponsors to step up to the plate and really like handpicked every single person that was on that boat. And we look for folks that are philanthropic in their mindset. And then we also look for folks that create opportunities for others. So, I mean, if you're going to an event and things aren't getting done, I think that is a real concern for me. Like we want to create, events where folks are coming out of there with conversations that lead to opportunities. And if that's not happening, then I think you're in the wrong group. So those are the things that we've created, and we've got a board for that in Center of Influence, and we have events every other month. That was a special one that we'll do probably again next spring, next summer, because I thought it was a pretty different event, kind of cool to have it on a boat ride and then to be able to go up multiple decks and have tables. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, nice. It's a great event.
Stuff for charity. So, folks that join our group, there is a fee that's associated with it, but we attract great people, and then we give a lot of the money that we take in back to different charities. So I think people need to know you care first before they're going to do anything for you in business. So that's something that we take great pride in.
So, Marya, did you?
No, I just love that criteria. Humble, hungry, and altruistic are the people I want to hang out with.
What's interesting is you've got people who talk about networking, and Chris, I think you're being humble about it, right? Like to grow an organization like SIL that quickly, I think it speaks to your knowledge in this area, and I think it's a good transition. Talk about, and what I'm thinking is, people who there's networking and there's re-networking, right? And I think after COVID, you've got these people who are re-networking because they didn't do what you're talking about. So if you've got somebody who, it could be anything, right? A kid just coming out of school. How do you network when you're young? I'm sure it's the same things. We deal with a lot of divorcing clients. What do you do with divorcing clients? Someone who might have been staying home for, raising the kids. Now they have to rebuild their network. Stuff after COVID. There's so many areas where this could apply. But it's that same mindset of like, holy crap, what do I do now? So what's the first step? What should they do?
I think a great part of networking, Doug, is to do your research on what event that you're going to get involved with. I mean, I had a gentleman as an example this morning that I met with at Panera Bread, which I call my second office because I spend a lot of time there. I could sit at home, but I'm like, I can't meet anybody sitting at home.
Yep.
So I knew this guy was an Indiana guy going into the meeting. So I think number one, LinkedIn is your friend. And if you're not using LinkedIn or whatever you prefer, Instagram, Facebook, any kind of social media to do research on what you're about ready to encounter, I think you're doing yourself an injustice. So I knew this guy was certainly a sports guy. He's from Northern Indiana. He is an insurance agent with State Farm. but I had a lot of background on what he was going to be about. Did we spend a lot of time talking about the mortgage world or insurance? Heck no. We talked about his background. We talked about growing up in Indiana like he did. And we talked about Alabama football and Indiana University for me. And really the whole time flew by like 45, 50 minutes. And I had another meeting coming up after that. And I literally could have sat there with that guy for another 2-3 hours. But that's what I do. I target who makes sense for me in my ecosystem. So I'll talk about, how to get specific with somebody. I knew going into this meeting, we were going to hit it off, and it was even better than I ever imagined. So I think if you're starting a network, I think number one, you need to know who you're about ready to meet. You need to know what those people's interests are before you even go into that meeting. So that, I would say that would be one of my number one pieces of advice I would give to someone that's just starting out.
I think that's so important too, because strategic networking, right? I kind of came up on the financial side of corporate America, where you go to networking events just kind of because you're supposed to, or because, your department has to have someone show up there, and it's not maybe as intentional or as researched as what you're saying. And then it doesn't feel productive, or it doesn't feel, I don't know, fulfilling. You just kind of go and make small talk, and at least that's how I feel. I was really interested for this topic because I'm not a natural networker, I don't think. But the way you're describing it sounds interesting to me versus the way that I've experienced it. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, the boat ride, right? I knew every person that was going to get on that boat because I had already had a list of folks. But, I had Doug and I had Max, a couple of guys that I respect immensely. And I had 3 to 5 people that I spent a lot of my time with on that boat ride. But I knew I spent like small amounts of time with everybody. I think you got to, like, if you're going to lead something, I think everybody needs to feel like they're welcomed. So every single person on that boat ride, we had probably around, I don't know, Doug, you can help me with the number, 50 to 60 people, I would guess, even though we had 100 that we invited or that we thought were going to come, but then the weather didn't cooperate. So we had about 50, 60. I think everyone that came on the boat knew that they felt welcome. And I think another key thing to the whole, and I hate the word networking, by the way, because networking to me sounds like you're just sitting around and we're not getting anything done. I like the word specificity. I can't even say it. And intentionality. I think being intentional, like you just said, is so key. And then I like the opportunity, meaning that we are creating stuff for folks, creating revenue opportunities, revenue driving opportunities. And we're being very, very specific with our time, and we're spending it very wisely. So, when you go to an event, I think 3 to 5 people that you spend a lot of time with and you get deep with, and then from there you get on with the second meeting. I think a lot of people make a mistake when they try to meet everybody, number one, and then they start. We've seen it at 100. This is the obvious thing to say, but when someone gives me their card within the first 5 seconds of meeting them, that to me is a turnoff. And I don't even, to be honest, I don't even carry cards a lot of the time. I say, here's my LinkedIn, and usually we'll exchange LinkedIn profiles, and I'll say, reach out to me, and then let's set a meeting. Because really, the goal for any networking opportunity or anyone when you're meeting somebody is to get to the second meeting. Because like I had a great first meeting with that agent today, and we talked about nothing but sports, but I can assure you we're going to meet a number of other occasions. And I guarantee you that we create business with each other because of all the commonalities that we have with each other. But anytime I go to an event, I have 3 or 4 people I spend a ton of time with, and then I know who's going to be at the next event, and then I'll probably pick out 3 or 4 more that I think I'll spend some more time with. So it's always about getting to the second, third, fourth, fifth meeting and developing a long-lasting relationship that we know is both going to be mutually beneficial to both of us.
So, but along those lines, that's if they know, right, if they've got particular targets. If you've got people, because we've gone back and forth between events and sort of the deliberate, I found this person on LinkedIn there's certain things that I want, I'm going to get a meeting with them because they can do something. But if somebody's like, hey, I'm just going to go to like a business after dark thing where it's a grab bag, right? You don't know. You could go to like Marya and I, a lot of times we'll go to events for bar associations because with my lending in the divorce space and me doing some mediation and Marya doing mediation, that's a really targeted group. People could also go to a group that's just kind of grab bag, right? What advice would you give with that? Because you don't have time to research those people, but you still want it to be, if you meet a dog walker and you don't have a dog, and that's a little bit harder stretch to get meeting the people who, I hate to say, who can assist you, because networking is not about what people can do for you. But what advice would you give people going to those events?
Find the Chris Johnson in the room, right? Find the center of influence that you see has access. The person that you see, and it may not be, and I'm being presumptuous when I say that, but I'm like Doug. I mean, when you go into a room, you light up a room like a strobe light. Find that person in that room where you see they have a lot of influence, and it's not always that. And then if you see that person, find somebody in the corner and they're bringing them into the middle, you found that person. So I look for that. I go to any event, especially if it's blind, I will look for that COI in that room, and then I'll let them lead me around to the right people. But they have to know you're a giver out of the gate. If they think you're a taker, which happens pretty frequently, you're going to have those people in the room that are handing out their cards within the first 5 seconds. Right there's a red flag. That's somebody that probably would not be the person you want to be around. So there's just certain people that stick out in a good way.
How would you do that, right? You've identified the person and you want them to kind of facilitate you through the room. What would that look like for someone who isn't maybe a natural at it or doesn't necessarily feel comfortable in that setting yet?
I think it would be up to the person that they meet to initiate that interaction. But any event that I ever go to, Marya, I know within about 5 minutes, I'll find that COI, and then I'll just and then we try to form, and I'll just keep bringing people over to that group, and we'll form pockets of 4 or 5, because it's certainly easier to work in packs once you know what people do than it is to do it on an individual level. So if you can get at least 2 to 3 people that kind of have a commonality, which you seek as you're at that event, then it becomes much easier to navigate the room. So
I do want to jump to step 2, but I have one last question on this topic is, when you go to an event, blind or otherwise, typically you either were invited by somebody or you might have found it, like in a Facebook group or something like that. Does the research thing carry over? Do you go to that particular organization and look and see who runs it, who's going to be there? Do you try and figure that out as much as you can before you get to the event?
Absolutely. And I think that is as important of a thing as possible. And you certainly want to know the person that put the event together, because a lot of times they are the COI, Doug. So the person behind the table that may be checking people in, you say, hey, who would you say? And I'll ask this question: who are the 3 people here that I need to know tonight?
So when you say you're going blind, you actually never go in blind.
Not all. I mean, if I don't have to, that right. would be the most ideal thing. Yes. But there are times where I will, but if I don't, it's certainly easier to get things accomplished when you know what you're about ready to go into.
So step 1, research, and it seems to cover a lot. It's all a matter of, it sounds like if you're meeting with somebody or going somewhere, doing anything, being deliberate, what next? They figured out who they're meeting with or where they're going, and they've done the research. What would be the next step?
Hold on 1 second. Let me turn my. So yeah, you know who you're going to research, and then I go through that room, and like I said a little bit ago, you're going to have 3 or 4 great conversations in that room, and I don't try to go expound upon any more than that. Okay, I find 3 or 4 great people, and I spend, let's say the event's 2 hours, I'll spend probably 20-25 minutes on an individual level with every single person in there. And then I look for other people that I can bring into that group. And like I said, form more than one person. And then you can get more accomplished by having packs of people in that event, and you go from there. But yeah, I mean, don't go past that. If you try to meet 100 people, you're certainly not going to remember what was talked about. And then for me, Doug, it's always about taking notes. Once I get done with an event, I'll go into the CRM that we have, and I'll say, who are the 4 or 5 people that I felt like were the most beneficial for me at that event, or who are 3 or 4 people that I think I can help.
Yep.
So maybe you have 3 or 4 people that you think are really good for what you're trying to get accomplished with your business, and who are the 3 or 4 people just as an altruistic person that you think you can help. Because like I go through life, if I can find 20, 25 people that I can elevate to a higher level than myself, which isn't that hard for me to do, to be honest. I mean, it's I keep expanding it. I first said 15, then I said 20. Now my life's goal is to have 25 people that I mentor, that I elevate to be better than what I've done in life, and try to bring value to their life in some way, whether it be on their business or on a personal level. And
so would you say that step is more about having reasonable expectations from the event, or it seems like sort of giving to get, or like being thorough in your follow-up, or even if that's 2 and 3, because I think that's even an interesting way for the conversation to go. Are those both kind of steps in terms of what you see people should be doing?
I think it all starts with giving, Doug. And as long as you understand that you're going to give about 20 times as much as you're going to get back, I think that's something you have to know right out of the gate.
So one question though, because this brings up an interesting approach, is when you were talking earlier, there was a lot about being deliberate, looking at people's backgrounds, seeing how they could help your business, which is really, in the end, what you have to do. You got to feed family, keep the roof over the head. But you're also talking about giving to get, which I think is definitely a step as well. And when you're looking at somebody, how does your brain click, right? Like, is it a matter of, wow, I should really help this person, or this person can really help me? Now, I know that they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but if you're given to get, is that more the priority for you?
It's compartmentalized. And I mean, you got to decide which hat you want to wear on that particular, because there are events where I'll find like a younger person that is just starting, and then I might spend a lot of my time, helping them with their business. And then but there are other times where I'm even more strategic and I put my business hat on. So I think, again, it's about research. It's about knowing what you're getting involved with. But yeah, I mean, my whole life is about giving. And I spend a lot of time, and you don't know where, and the other thing I'd say, Doug, is you don't know who you're talking to. And that's a huge mistake people make, is that they think that they're targeting a specific niche, and like that person could help them more than anyone else. And maybe like someone else that you think needs something from you. Okay. Like for instance, like an agent for us, right? That is certainly a target of what we do, right? And that that they want to get business from us. But in all actuality, you don't know who they know. So right. I think people make a huge mistake thinking that, they target a certain demographic of what works for them. And, I love when people say, I can help you. That's like a big thing to me. You can help me what? Are you going to help me because you can make money off what I do? Or you're going to help me, a side of money? Like, so the bottom line, what I'm trying to get at is that you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what their network looks like. And I've made that mistake, and I'll never make it again. So someone you're targeting, you'll spend more time with that person because that's someone that you're segmenting. But also you give everybody 5-10 minutes of your time, because again, you don't know who they know. So you never turn down a meeting. I've never once in my life, if somebody reaches out to me, say, can we meet? I never say no.
Okay. That's a great point to break. We're going to go to a commercial break real quick. You're listening to Getting Started.Life on the Going Solo Network. I missed the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We're going to go to a quick commercial, and then we'll be back with Chris Johnson.
You're muted.
Live radio, gentlemen and ladies. You're listening to Getting Started.Life on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. Our guest today, Chris Johnson, networker extraordinaire. In the first half of the show, he got us the first two steps of how do you get started networking. Some research and being deliberate. Did I miss anything, Chris?
No.
All right. So now people have kind of embraced the first two steps. What next do they have to think about?
I think about the next step is to start going back and then doing your follow-up calls with all the folks that stood out to you at that event, and hosting those second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth meetings, similar to the one I had this morning. If you've done a good job with the and you've spent enough time with every single one of those people that you were at that event with, and you've made it where it's not about you, and you've listened, right, Doug? You've listened to them.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. No, it's
No.
Exactly. But can I ask
I
you
think,
a question, though, about that step?
yeah.
There's whiz-bang technology, right? Take a picture of a business card. It's in your database. But it sounds like you're very, again, deliberate in kind of looking at the card and getting reflective and putting your notes in. So do you think there's an aspect of losing that when you just scan a bunch of cards in?
Yeah, I do. And I think that you've got to be really, really diligent in the conversations that you have. You've got to take copious notes. And like I already took notes this morning once I got back from that great meeting that I had today. And I think really to have great interactions and find great events, Doug and Marya, I think you've really got to get wise counsel, and you've got to have other folks that you trust kind of tip you off on where these great events are, because I think champions hang out with champions. And if you've done a good job segmenting like the events that you want to go to, I think you kind of know the kind of people that are going to be attracted there. And so I think that's extremely, extremely important. So, you've done your research, you've met a few people, but you've also been tipped off from other people that you already had in your network as far as where those great events are at. I hope people say when they talk about Center of Influence, when they talk about Strategic Introduction League, that we have curated and vetted phenomenal people for them to meet. Because if they don't say that, then I'm doing something wrong as far as the types of folks that we invite. Because if I don't see that someone is those three things that we talked about, humble, hungry, altruistic, then it's a quick no as to, that doesn't really fit our ecosystem as far as what we're trying to do. And then with Center of Influence, we have a board. So somebody's interested in our network, we have 3 of our board members take a look at it and say, is this a good fit? Is this not a good fit? And we look at their LinkedIn. We say, who are these? Who do they know? And, are those people going to be advantageous for, and then is it a good fit for the businesses that we have? I mean, like when
you do that, is it like that scene in Animal House where they're voting on the pledges? Do you have like a big screen? You put them up there and you're like, this guy, and they get a nickname?
Not yet.
Goals.
Question for you, as you're building that network, if it's somebody who can really connect you with the people that you need to connect with, when in the relationship do you do that? It sounds like it's dating kind of, right? But at the end of, when is it okay to say, hey, I totally want to help you how I can, but can you help me meet this person?
I think there's a couple of different things. I think if you feel that synergistic value quickly, I think you can get there faster. The second thing is if you can help them with a tangible opportunity. Once you give somebody an opportunity, as we both know, Doug, like if you can help somebody get a piece of business out of a situation, that is the absolute currency to the relationship, because they know that the selfishness is out the window. They know that you're somebody that is whether they feel, I don't know if the word connected, so that may be too strong of a word, but they know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I go into situations saying, I'm not looking for a one-way street here. I'm looking for both of us to win, and that we're both going to benefit from this relationship. And so, it's like a good sports figure. I don't watch what people say. I watch what they do. So if you're going to make that strong statement out, then you've got a lot to execute on. So, again, who's your network? Are you using wise counsel to go get great people from those people? And then are you doing what you say you do? Because if you say, oh, I know a lot of people and I'm going to help you get an opportunity, then nothing ever happens. I think you lose a little bit of that integrity piece. You lose a little bit of that commonality that you have with somebody, because I think first and foremost in any good relationship, it's always about trust. So don't talk a big game if you can't produce what you say you're going to do. So those are all very key factors in developing an awesome network, is that, the humble and the trust. And then, but if you can get somebody an opportunity pretty quickly, I think you can ask for a lot of opportunity, a lot of stuff in return.
What about the events that I think we kind of feel compelled to go to as professionals in our community, that may not be as well structured or as well vetted as some of the networking events that you're talking about? Charity events, chamber meetings, stuff like that. How do we make the most out of those? I think most of us small business owners do want to be involved in our local communities too. What is your take on those?
I think charity events are great because that those people think outside themselves.
They're altruistic, so they automatically
check the box. I think you're going to attract. You already have a commonality going into it, so
yep.
That is very, very helpful. I've got a group that I drive to Indianapolis. I'm from Bloomington, Indiana originally, as I said earlier in the program, but I drive to Indianapolis for a group of guys. It's called it's called Synergize Indianapolis, and so the people they attract, and they attract 150, 200 people at every event. We have a religious thing going where, it's we have that commonality. So therefore we know that they have big hearts. And so you can really, go into that feeling very together right out of the gate. And then they have a charitable component to it where they raise lots and lots of money for things like Make-A-Wish. And, you walk out of there, you got tears in your eyes. When you can create emotion at an event with people, you just find yourself getting closer, quicker, because you have things in common. And again, I knew that going into it. And now every single time I go to Indianapolis to go to these events, people know who I am. And then we got that commonality of the give. So I can create opportunities quicker because of those commonalities, which is awesome. It feels really good.
So Chris, another question, and then we'll move on to the fourth step. As you were talking about the third step and sort of assessing, right? Like you've met a lot of people, assessing the benefit you could be to them, the benefit they can be to you, how to engage them in the future, what the next step is. As I'm going along with the dating analogy, maybe they have hunger, humility, all the things that we've talked about, but there's no chemistry, right? It's like dating, right? What do you do with those? You keep them in your network? Is it like, hey, maybe it was that setting? Like, what do you do? Because ultimately in the beginning you had said, hey, your network should be something that's not necessarily vast. It should be quality. So you only have so much room for quality in the network, and you might look and just say, wow, I don't hit it off with that person. Do you kind of put them in a different bucket?
Yeah, I do. I've got folks that, and so I hope I don't give away my secrets here if I give somebody 10 minutes of my time or someone I give an hour. But I think you compartmentalize, Doug, based upon what you think. And I think you have a first meeting, and then you have I do 15 minutes now. It used to be I gave everybody an hour and a half. I would just go on and on and on, and then I would not know if we had anything in common from the beginning. And now it's like 15 minutes, and we have a lot in common. Then we'll meet in person, or we'll do another call, and we'll just open it up, and we'll have a lot longer time period. But you've got buckets of people that you, and then people can graduate out of certain buckets depending upon
Right. So
how
you don't cut ties. You
no.
just there if you have time after dealing with the people who generally you connect with.
And I mean, and my door is always open to help, any situation possible. I mean, you might have somebody that you have nothing in common with business wise, but they're having a struggle in life with their family, and you'll still make the time for that. So, I think everyone has a role. You turn your back on nobody, but you certainly, spend more time on folks that you can maybe help them get business. And then again, who do they know? If they have a connection to somebody else that you could help, or that could be a big source of business for on-time mortgage, you're certainly going to spend more time with them. So, yeah, I mean, you've got buckets of time that you give out, and that's your life. You're just like, you're going back and forth, A, B, and C, A people, B people, C, just like your prospects.
So now that when people are done assessing, right, obviously they're starting back to square one for their next networking event, right? So I'm sure it's a continuing cycle. But with the people that they've met at a certain event, or that they've connected with what you're recommending, sort of that speed dating more type of engagement to see if it works, and then going on that first date, maybe, what do they do after they've made that assessment? How do they move into that next connection, that next meeting?
So they've already, so start over with that. So they've already had a meeting.
Well, no, I'm trying to get to step 4, but to say that as people are starting to think about this from a networking perspective, they go steps 1 through 3, but they should still be thinking starting steps 1 through 3 for the next event or the next thing they're going to. But I'm guessing step 4 is that those people that you've connected with either passively through the internet, or you're at an event, they've done all the other things you've said. They've assessed that potential relationship. What's next?
And then if you've got that synergistic value, and you've probably helped each other create opportunities from that point on, now you're getting into you're branching out into their network to say, hey, we have great value. Usually people hang out with people that are similar to them in personality. I think that's why you and I and Max hit it off from the get-go, because again, personalities are similar. Right. You're almost targeting personality, almost like this profile. I mean, I do better with I's and S's. I struggle with D's, man. I really do. Right. Folks that are highly maybe impatient, I don't do that well with. And C's are so methodical in their process, and they're constantly asking questions, and maybe they're oftentimes introverts. I struggle with. So the next level is getting all the people that you've really hit it off with on that level 3. You're starting to get into like, all right, who are folks that remind you of yourself that I can interact with, and that's when you've got. I mean, the key to your network is to make it from big to small. And how can I get even? I want my network to be as small as possible. Never turn anyone down, but I'll have like a group of 20 in our business where I'll say, all right, I really like all 20 of these, and then we keep it tight. And
what's interesting, what I hear when you say small, it's interesting that it has sort of a pejorative feel, right? Like small, it's not the word you hear out there for networks and other things, but I think it's almost like you're saying quality, right? Like, yeah, you always want that network that's quality, that does what a network does, right? Like I remember when I was in the technology sector, there were all sorts of optical networks that weren't turned on, and that's like, when that business in the early 2000s crashed, there were all these great networks that weren't doing anything. And it seems like that's almost what you're talking about, like a big network of ineffectiveness and no activity isn't as good as a smaller one that getting things done. And I almost hear on step 4 that you're talking about depth, like deepen it for quality.
Yep, it is depth, and it's like, and then those are the people that you can, like, if you're having a problem in your day, like you can be as transparent and as real. It's almost like you're starting to get into a really deep friendship level with the folks that get into that. And then I mean, we'll get into the last stage, and the last stage is where you're like in masterminds, and like they're giving you their problems, and you're like, you've got this cohesive group of people that you can cry in front of, and they're like, and then you can laugh, you can cry, you can do all those things. And that's when you know that you've got the right group. And then you're always like, there are folks that'll fall out of that, right? I mean, you got folks that are not, that they're going to fall out of that trust level because they'll do something where you thought you had trust and you find out that maybe that wasn't somebody that has your back, and you're just tweaking, man. You're like pulling, you're like a basketball team. You got 10 guys you're playing or 10 women you're playing. And you're like, man, I thought I was 10 deep on my hoops team, and I'm really only 8 deep. And so you're just looking for more stars, if you would. That's where you're getting into your group of elite people, where you're like, okay, this is my elite. I'm going to get tons of, and I'm giving them 20 leads. They're giving me 20 leads. Like, there's nothing more satisfying than when you find your tribe, as we say in this world, like people that totally get you and they challenge you to be better. It's awesome. It's the best feeling in the world.
See, and hearing the passion that you're talking about with that is really cool, because I think it does speak to some contrarian thinking, right? Like, of how that works. Like, the fact that quality is better than quantity. Now, I think to have that broader network that you might passively, there's the people. It's like anything else, right? Acquaintances, friends, close friends, and family, right? It's kind of that shrinking sphere of influence. But it sounds like what you're saying is on number 5 is, integrate them into your life beyond work.
Yeah, I mean, I spend time with them. I mean, I'll invite it. Like, that's when you're like, you have a Christmas party, and those are the people that are there. And the folks that you're hanging out during the day are the folks you're hanging out with at night, because you're just like totally in unison. Your total synergistic value of those people is like family. And I think that word gets overused in networking sometimes. They go, we're family, but you get people that you really resonate with and jive with. It's awesome. It's like the best, absolute best feeling in the world. And like, then you'll start calling those people like once a day. You talk to them more than your wife sometimes. I hate to admit it.
So we don't run out of time. What's the biggest mistake? And we touched on a lot of them, right? Biggest mistake. If someone
people go too fast. This is a journey. This is a lifestyle. I live my life for relationships. I cherish conversation. I cherish folks that I have things in common with. I love the chase. I love the build, and I love getting to know people. And if you go into life with that inquisitive, happy, grateful mood, you never get tired of it. Like it's just the way you live your life, and it's natural. It's organic. And you spend your whole life being altruistic and helping other people grow, and you help people and you give them opportunities, and they give you opportunities. It's like the most beautiful thing ever. And every day you wake up clapping your hands, excited to go to the next day. It's so much fun.
Well, I think that's really inspiring to the group. Now, I want to give you time to let people know. Right now, it's in the bottom underneath the video, but this will be on audio as well. If people want to get hold of you, maybe have some interest in hearing more about the Strategic Introduction League and Center of Influence, how do they get hold of you? What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I keep hammering LinkedIn, but that's number one. Chris Johnson. I mean, there's only 7 million of us, but you'll find me on that. And then Chris at centerofinfluence.vip is my email. Centerofinfluence.vip is the website if folks want to check that out. And if folks have charities that I need to be looking at to get represented, I would love to have that conversation. But I love people. So reach out to me. Would love to talk.
And I would say, as with any guest, if for some reason they can't find your stuff, reach out to us.
Yep.
We can get that information. Chris, you didn't disappoint. I think there was almost, it's interesting. There's 5 steps, but I almost got 10 steps out of it, but they were so actionable for people. Again, I think it's so relevant now. People coming out of COVID, their networks may have completely, they may be in an entirely new career.
Yep.
And I hope this helps people. So you've been listening to Getting Started.Life on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. where we're about starting new things and how to be successful at it, and the 5 steps and the biggest mistake. If you have something you want to find out about, let us know. We'll find the guests. We'll find the Chris Johnsons of whatever you want to learn so that you can learn about it. And if you've got a burning desire to teach people about something that you do, there's really no topic. Well, there might be a few topics that we can't do, but generally there's no topic that we can't do. And we'd love to have you on the show. So tune in every other Tuesday. We did have a little bit of shift. Next Tuesday is our next show. So tune in next week. But generally every other Tuesday at 12 Central on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Marya.